Hello, friends. Hello. This month's audiobook is The Seafoam Inn. This is our Bringers of the Light series. Just sit back, relax, get yourself something cozy to drink, wrap yourself in a fuzzy blanket, or wherever you are, just hang out with my voice as we read from the manuscript of The Seafoam Inn. A little bed and breakfast in Rockaway Point that's known for its lovey love spells. Whoever enters there is kind of overtaken by either a love spell that progresses them on in their current relationship with their paramour, or invites them to look into the shadows of their heart for the one that might be hiding there behind the walls that have been built up around, waiting to come through. Now, I'm not a professional audiobook reader, although I love listening to audiobooks. But let's get settled in. So don't expect this is going to be meant to be fun and entertaining. It's not meant to be perfection and, studio quality audiobook. So just keep that in mind. This is meant for us to hang out and have fun and connect with the bringers of the light. That's me, that's you, that's all of us. So this is The Seafoam Inn. I have not written the dedication yet. This is yet to be published. We're working through this together. And if you want to join us on Sunday mornings on the podcast at TLC for the Soul, those are posted on the podcast only, so any major podcast provider. Then you can follow along as we bring in the chapters, the channeled chapters, and apply them to the energies of the week ahead. But right now, we're just in it for the story. So this is chapter 1, Cats. It was 1 o'clock on the dot, and the chimes at Flanagan's Cathedral tolled one long bell. The curtains in the open windows of Tilly O'Malley's bed and breakfast, the Seafoam Inn, billowed in the light July breeze. The wind coming off Rockaway Point Bay soothed the soul and left tendrils of salty goodness as it blew south and inland past town. Tilly and her maid, Happy Farnsworth, were tidying up the rooms. It was Friday, and they were expecting the Candy McDougall wedding party any minute now. Candy, Larimar McDougall's little sister, had finally convinced her beau, Clark Witherspoon, to marry, and Clark, the town's vet at Posh Pets, had decided he wanted his new bride to have only the best. He bought her wedding dress from Versace, her wedding bands from Cartier, and a matching diamond collar for Poodles. Townsfolk wondered why a rich boy from Martha's Vineyard, USA, had decided to settle down in their little town off the coast of the UK. But he wasn't letting on. He had been instrumental in setting up the Rockaway Point home for wayward pets, and now he was going to open a huge dog park out by the Autumn Festival fairgrounds. As long as he continued to support the town, no one would be the wiser. Except, that is, for Candy. She'd had one too many failed romances, and after her sister Larimar's fated romance with Billy Tavish, a USA transplant himself, Candy wanted to have that same type of love in her life. She thought it was fate that had brought her and Clark together, although at times she doubted her power to manifest her own fated dreams. Candy and Clark had instantly clicked when she had brought her mother's poodle, Mr. Fluff, in for a trim. Clark had hired the best dog beautician from the East Coast, Sunny, and had paid her handsomely to join his practice in Rockaway Point, promising her that everyone in town wanted their pets to look posh. Sunny agreed to a 1-year trial run and asked Clark to buy her the old rambling Rose Cottage as a token of his gratitude for her moving herself the thousands of miles from her Nantucket home. Sunny and Candy had developed a fast friendship since Mr. Fluff seemed to always need a blowout. And Sunny did the best poodle grooming that the town had seen since the old dog groomer Miss Kitten had run away with Albie Chalmers to Oakwood, USA. Sunny also had a knack for grooming cats, and it was such on this breezy Friday that one Scratchy Willikers was enjoying the cat-o'-nine-tail grooming session. It included a sudsy foam bath in cotton-scented foam, a light drying with Sunny's invention, the Fairy Wind's blow-dry bar, and a toenail trim. He left scented, fluffed, and flounced when Polly came to pick him up at 2 p.m., but that wasn't going to last long. He had, since he stepped outside the door of Posh Pets, smelled something in the wind off the bay. Someone was coming to town, and Scratchy didn't like the feeling in the fur at the back of his neck. It stood on end as he got sight of what was coming. It was an old foe of the Bringers of the Light and his cat, Mr. Meow. Mr. Meow had telepathically connected with Scratchy with a dastardly, "you better watch out, I'm coming home again" vibe that made Scratchy wince. He thought he was supposed to have a peaceful summer, but now this. Chapter 2, Rock Around the Clock. Scratchy and Polly headed home as it was time for Scratchy's dinner, but he couldn't eat knowing that dastardly Mr. Meow would be back in town, and that the old nemesis of Abigail and Dakar, Count Mashar, was out of prison. He had been locked up at the Bringers of the Light HQ for quite some time now, but a little schmoozing and false promises had gotten him an early release. He wasn't supposed to step foot in Rockaway Point again after he and his minions had tried to overtake the town. But that wasn't going to stop him from paying a visit. He had left something important behind after his arrest, and he needed that talisman before he could continue with his plan. The boat, Tall Winds 4, docked in Tessa Lock, and when Mr. Rocky Tannenbaum disembarked, in the case at his side, Mr. Meow lay quietly after having been sedated for the wavy ride across the Sound. Rocky, a.k.a. Count Mashar, hailed a cab and input the address for the Sea Foam Inn into the tablet in the back. "You'll be there in a jiff," the robot driver said through the intercom system. The AI cab company was using this prototype robotic driver system after it had trouble hiring human drivers. Count Mashar wasn't sure he was sold on the idea, and neither were the townspeople. Several times the AI driver had taken them to the wrong address, down the wrong side of the street, and even into the side of a building on one occasion. Count Mashar was ready to jump if anything weird occurred, but for now he settled in and opened the door to Mr. Meow's cat tote. "I need you for a mission," Mashar said to Mr. Meow, but the dark brown and white patched cat could only snore and roll over in his tote. He needed a good rest, it was for sure. The robot safely deposited Count Mashar in Rockaway Point and correctly at the Seafoam Inn. He slid his card into the reader and paid the sum and tip. He wasn't sure if robots needed tips, but the system asked, and he obliged. The front window curtains parted as Tilly observed her guest for the night. A Mr. Rocky Tannenbaum was booked in for one night in the Seafoam suite. He had paid in advance, and it included a little extra for incidentals. Mr. Meow had been known at the light of the full moon to go into quite a frenzy, and many a couch cushion and chair tapestry had been destroyed in his moments of mayhem. And a bright full supermoon was expected in a few days, and it had already been causing quite a stir in the townsfolk of Rockaway Point. Tamber had accidentally shifted into her not-of-Earth self and had climbed the water tower in a hellish blaze of fire and lightning. She stayed at the top howling and breathing fire until Jameson had been called by the mayor to kindly coax her down. It was only after the promise of milk duds and a movie night out to see the latest summer movie that Tamber had calmed, shifted, and climbed down. But the incident had set off an alarm at Bringers of the Light HQ, where Highcar made note of what had happened. Tamber was under no circumstances supposed to shift. She had the lock on her to keep her from doing so. How and why that lock had been removed, he must know. She was a huge danger to the world without it. Highcore would have to go to Rockaway Point and find out what was going on. He didn't like to travel during holiday weeks, but if he must, even if it was only astral travel and teleportation. Count Mashar checked into the Seafoam suite and ordered his dinner up in the room. Mr. Meow awoke to a plate of chilled salmon, and Count Mashar finalized his plans to find the talisman he so desired. It was going to be a very eventful next couple of days. Chapter 3. It's Not So Bad After All. Scratchy woke in the middle of the night. His dreams had been hazy and filled with visions of the townspeople of Rockaway Point all begging for his assistance. He scratched his claws down the carpeted cat tunnel in the living area. His nails gripped the carpet and tore through the strands of pink shagginess. He was frustrated, but what could he do? Go to the Sea Mist Inn and confront Mr. Meow? That would be crazy, or would it? The patched cat who Scratchy always thought was old Mr. Lightenborough from his long-ago wizard days at the academy wouldn't see him coming. Scratchy was sure of it. And so he climbed out the cracked bedroom window that Polly had left open for the fairies and brownies to come and go. She had even left a plate of vegan cream pie in teeny tiny slivers for them. Scratchy noticed several fairies hoisting a sliver of the creamy whipped pie over their shoulders to take back to camp. He flipped his whiskers at them and scowled, hoping to get a rise out of them. But this time the Fae only giggled and blew fairy dust his way, sending him into a temporary euphoria. He jumped down from the windowsill as visions of rainbows and green clovers, blue diamonds and pink hearts. Oh, wait, that's a moniker for someone else. Scratchy did not want to meet up with Kingsley O'Hanrahan tonight, pots of gold or not. He was on a mission, and he needed to get his head on straight. He shook his ears vigorously, releasing the hold of the fairy dust. The twinkles and giggles in his mind subsided. Now to get that Mr. Meow to fess up to what was going on. Hopefully he wouldn't have to hurt him. Mr. Meow could be a mean one. Maybe he needed some backup, Scratchy thought, and decided it couldn't hurt. He'd go by Dakar's and see if the old guy was up for an adventure. Yeah, that would work. Scratchy and his partner in crime, Clive Douglas, could take this on no problem at all. All right, friends, I'm going to leave it here. So I'm going to try to record 3 chapters at a time. So stay tuned for chapters 4, 5, and 6. And I bid you a beautiful, magical, mystical, pumpkin spice filled, since this is when we're recording this in middle October 2023, pumpkin spice filled day, evening, or night, or whenever. I love you all, and I will see you all again soon. Take care.